Hello, mate. Hello.
Hi, you alright?
You hear me, son?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. I appreciate this, lad. I appreciate you giving up your time in it.
No worries, mate.
I think I think it's recording. Hang on. Let me double check. All right, yeah, yeah, I've got it. I've got it. All right, so I'm just gonna get straight into it. I'd like to hear about your early days of your career. What got you kicking a ball in the first place, first position
Yeah.
you played, any clubs you dreamed of playing for.
Yeah. I think same as everyone really, like you start kicking a ball about at home through probably if your dad gives you a ball.
Hmm.
Uh, and that was my situation really. My dad, all my family are big Stoke fans. So I sort of went to my first game at about 4 years old, um, kicking a ball sort of from as soon as I could walk really, and then just went to I did a year or two when I was like really young at like local, but then just through people that I knew really, I ended up going to Crew Academy, and then through going to Crew's Academy, I then ended up at Stoke Academy. So from about 5 to 9 years old, I was doing both Crew and Stoke. You don't have to sign contracts, just pre-academy. So I was kind of doing like Monday Crew, Tuesday Stoke, Wednesday Crew,
That's a lot, that
Thursday.
isn't it? That's a lot.
So like it was, but for me it was just a case of I just love playing football, so it was
Hmm.
easy, and it sort of carried on from even then. Like I think for a lot of lads that come through academies, the actual sacrifices come from the families and the parents
Hmm.
more so than actual kids, because I was just turning up and getting coached to play football and just loving life. But like it's from where I lived, it was like 40 minutes to Crew and half an hour to Stoke training ground. So it was a lot of traveling for me at a young age, and a lot of traveling for my
Hmm.
mum work and that. But that was sort of my grounding really, and I'm sort of fortunate that I was able to do both, just to get the sort of I was getting coached professionally from 5 years old, which not many lads have the opportunity
Hmm.
to do. Um, which then got to 9 years old, where you have to sign like a proper academy contract sort of thing, and chose Stoke over Crew purely because I was a Stoke fan. I think at the time, Crew still has a great reputation for having a good academy, so it was sort of from a career point of view, it was quite a bold choice to make at the time.
Yeah.
Crew had such a good academy and
Yeah.
a good bring the lads through, but it was always my dream to play for Stoke. So even if I only like you get told when you sign the papers, look, there's the chance of the 10 lads that I signed with at 9 years old, you'll be lucky if one of you makes it to 18 in
Hmm.
the still at the club. So you're told about that, and I think that probably swayed my decision in that I knew that it could only last a couple of years, and if that meant that I had a couple of years of playing for Stoke and I never got to do it
Hmm.
again, I wanted to do that more than potentially do it at Crew. So that's what swayed me to that, and then stayed at Stoke all the way through until I'd left at the end of last season at 19. So I was well fortunate to be able to come all the way through, but it took a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice to sort of get there, because a lot of lads came and went alongside you, and people get bought into because people think that they're going to take over from you. There's a pecking order in the group, and I was lucky that a lot of boys come through with me. We had about 6 or 7 of us that stayed together from like 10 years old all the way through to 18. But every year they're trying to bring in lads to improve the academy and get results. And that means that you're getting lads coming in your position, and it's UV them, and it's a
Hmm.
competition. So,
I guess it's hard to see your friends sort of coming and going and people you connect with at the football club and then everyone's just sort of moving on. Must
yeah,
be
especially
difficult,
because
man.
you know, through being like in an academy and the way that it is, because you can get like properly told off like at a young age,
Mm,
like cutthroat then, and like you know that at the end of the season there's going to be boys getting released. So you see each other most pretty much every day, and you see each other in quite an emotional like state at times.
mm,
So you like some of the boys that I saw like all the way from like 9, 10 years old to 18. I've seen them boys at like the highest of the high that they've ever been and the lowest of the lows. And
Mm,
you'd think anybody, even like us as players, we don't quite realize how much you see of each other and how much that you actually do depend on each other and sort of support
mm,
each other, because you can get like, if you have a stink on a Saturday, even at like 13, 14, coach is hammering you. You're in a professional environment. The coach is getting on
even
at
at
you.
that young age, I guess. Even at that young
Yeah,
age, it's still.
because it even like some coaches probably do take it too far, but it all comes down to everyone. All you get told is we are preparing you to go into senior
Mm,
football.
mm,
Senior football is worse than what you get in academies, even though at the time as a 13, 14 year old where you're hearing swear words from adults for the first time
mm,
and you're getting put on the spot and like, do you think that's good enough? Well, it happens to some lads where you get that sort of feedback and they just turn around to the mum and dad and say, look, I can't do it. Like, I don't want to do it. I'd rather go and play with my mates on a Saturday, Sunday and just not have that pressure. Um, and you do see lads that just did it, call it themselves. Like, doesn't
mm,
take for them. At least it's just like, I don't want the pressure, but it helps if you got good mates around you to then you get a you get told off by a coach or whatever, but then you've got your mate. I didn't think you were that bad. You know what I mean? I thought you were
mm,
all right.
mm,
And even just like just getting you through and like texting you after and just saying like you're definitely coming training on Monday, aren't you? Because
mm,
lads that you've spent 4 or 5 years with that just don't turn up on a Monday, and it's like, yeah, he's gone. He's decided he don't want it.
mm,
Like it's tough. It is tough, but through that you do sort of need that so you don't get a shock to the system when you get to
mm.
senior football and it's you can be in 1 week and out the next.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you have any sort of the best memories from your younger days at Stoke? Do you miss those days at times?
Yeah, I think even though you do feel the pressure still when you're younger, it's nowhere near that. And I'd say like you prioritize the fun. The coaches prioritize the fun element when you're young. So it's that, and then it's just that sort of the novelty of like you playing for a professional team. You've got the training kit, you've got the kits. You
Mm,
go in like you go into like Man United's training ground on a Sunday morning, and even though you like only playing like under nines, under tens or whatever, it is like a massive deal, and it feels big. Um, Memories. We went to some tournaments when we were younger, like at St George's Park, the England training
yeah,
ground.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, Premier League tournaments, like most of them, I get hosted there, so you get to go there. You're like 12 years old, like half terms. You're talking like a 4 or 5 day in like the hotel there. It's like a 5-star hotel,
Mm,
sharing like 2 or 3 of your teammates, and like you just play football all day against like top teams in the country, playing
yeah,
against
I
like
imagine.
because as well the where we when you're younger you sort of play teams within your sort of region. So we were always like northwestern teams. So United's, Liverpool's got into like the Birmingham area, but then you go to these tournaments, you're playing London teams from down south, and that. So it was like that exciting part of it as well. So there was those tournaments were definitely a highlight. If there was one that sort of sticks out, we did one, and there was a few foreign teams. We played AC Milan at like I think it was under 11s, and we beat them 3-0, and that was like massive for us.
That's got to be a crazy experience, sort of playing other
Yeah,
European sides that are big in other places in Europe. That's got to be crazy.
yeah, just like the names and like you see them turning up, and it's like AC Milan training kits, and
Mm,
like they just look like the part. You see them like Champions League highlights, and all of a sudden, like you got these lads, and probably wrongly, but we were like, oh my god, these are like proper players, and we're just like a bunch of 10 lads from like
yeah,
Stoke. And the Italian kids are turning up like with like all different color. Like we always had to wear black boots at Stoke, but then you'd have
yeah,
like boys pink boots and like headbands on, like
yeah,
just looking the part. And we were like just like finished school on Friday and turned up here like trying to play against these boys. And on at that tournament we beat them 3-0. So it was like definitely something to sort of go back into school on the
Mm,
Monday and be AC
yeah,
Milan
for
last
sure.
week.
For sure. So at Stoke, during Choupo-Moting's time there,
Yeah,
got to be one of the weirdest out of the blue transfer signings of all time.
yeah.
Have you got any insights on the transfer? Any interesting stories on the transfer?
Um, it's weird. It's I think football is one of the only environments that like you can see stuff go on, and it was weird me being a Stoke fan because you like I know people that would be like, oh my god, what's going on? And you
Mm,
do see
yeah,
uh, like with him specifically. So he signed for Stoke in the last season that Stoke were in the Premier League and got relegated. Um, and I left school on the it was like the 20. I did my last GCSE on like the 23rd of June, 2018. Started pre-season at Stoke on the 25th.
mm,
2 days from finishing school, and you go into full-time football. And at that time, Stoke had sort of tried to have a clear out of the first team squad. They got relegated. So there was like Choupo-Moting, like proper Premier League players. Glenn Johnson was there, people like that, like big names, and some of them got pushed down to the 23s. So
yeah,
I sort of come straight in from school into pre-season with the under 18s, and we train on the pitch next to these boys,
yeah,
and we look up to the under 23s players anyway. But then all of a sudden, like you're seeing people like him,
yeah,
he's training on the pitch, and it's like I was doing my GCSEs 2 days ago, and I'm
yeah,
seeing Moting on the pitch next to me, and but then also from like a Stoke fan's point of view, it's like he doesn't look like he's trying
yeah,
and doesn't look bothered. So then it was like you sort of like rumors spread. It's like what's he doing there? Or Gaffer's bombing him. He's down with the 23s till he gets a move. So no one from sort of outside the club, everyone just thinks he's gone back for pre-season with the rest of the group and that. But I'd like come home to my dad like Choupo-Moting's going, like he's gone. He's training with the 23s, like he's done. So I knew he was going, but then you sort of hear rumors, and then he's obviously talking to the boys that he's training with, and he's like, I got this club and that club, and most of them were like, he wanted to go back to Germany. We knew that, but then he was like, there's a few big Champions League clubs that want me as well, and he's like, and we were like, well, is he going to go or not? And it just sort of happens as like he doesn't turn up for a day, and we're like, right, he's gone, but no one knows where, and then you might have like the odd boy who's like a little bit closer to him who's like texting him like, where you going? And I don't think anyone could get in touch with him on a day. And then we come in from training, it was just on Sky Sports News, like it's just
crazy,
time for
crazy,
PSG. And so like for these boys that like we've not done anything in our careers at all, and we've not seen that level. Like we've seen
yeah,
Premier League players training, and like for a mid-table Premier League team, and then a team that got relegated, and then Championship players. And we sort of put him in that bracket. Like you just got relegated from the Premier League. Like you're obviously unbelievable. You played at the top level, but you're not like we don't see players that play in the Champions League. We don't see like
mm,
level, and all of a sudden it's like yeah, he's gone from like training with like some of my mates to like Neymar, and it's like
crazy,
how has he managed that sort of thing? But then it's sort of surprising how the most surprising thing is how well that he did when he was there, because he actually did all right for a bit.
didn't do too bad, did he?
Yeah. So and I think like it was either that season or the season after he was playing. He started in the Champions League semi
Mm.
final, and it's like crazy to think like. But
Would that have been the
that's how
Barcelona? Would that have been the Barcelona game? Was that? I
possible.
think so.
And then during the COVID year, he played against Bayern Munich before he went there. He definitely played in a semi final against
Mm,
them as well. Like how quick things can change in football. A little bit of
crazy,
fortune.
man. So
Wow,
could you
he's
see? Could you sort of see the skill of it that he had? Could you see him being at a club like PSG or like Bayern Munich? Could you see that at Stoke?
um trying. Yeah, you could tell he was top level, but then at Stoke we had massive names there anyway. So if you're talking like top trainers, I wouldn't really put him in that bracket.
Ah,
we had like, even when we were in the championship the first year, when Nathan Jones came in, I trained with the first team a little bit. I was only 16. But whenever the 23s had a game on a Monday, if they asked for a player, they needed an under 18. So I was doing all right at that time. So I was sort of getting the nod. And in those training groups, there was like Charlie Adam, unbelievable trainer. Bojan won the Champions League with Barcelona.
Bojan. He was meant to be the next Messi, wasn't he, Bojan?
He was like, he was, for me, training with him was way ahead of probably what I'd put Choupo-Moting, but careers go in different ways from that point onwards. So it's weird, but like Darren Fletcher was there, obviously won champion everything with Man United. So in terms of like with Choupo, like did I really see him going on to do what he's done? Probably not, because he was at a club that was on a downward spiral, and it was just sort of like he'll move on, but he'll just go somewhere similar.
Mm.
And there's players there that are like probably better than him, but it only takes one person's opinion to flip your career, and obviously someone's taken a chance on him to go there, and
Yeah.
he's done a job. So yeah,
Fair
probably a
play
bit
to
of
him,
a
I guess. Fair play to
yeah.
him. So you were at Stokes during Harry Souttar's time there as well. As you know, I'm a Leicester City fan, so I'm just intrigued on that
Yeah.
one. What was he like as a player and as an individual at Stoke?
Um, definitely the last couple of years that he was there, obviously getting his move to Leicester, I think everyone knew that he was going to he'd play in the Premier League. When he first came, he's a few years older than me, but I sort of trained with him and stuff, and he was probably what you'd expect from a 17-year-old that was 6'6".
Mm.
Like you'd probably put him on a little bit Bambi on ice sort of a vibe. But I mean, he worked so hard to
Yeah,
sort of to what he's producing now, because I don't think anybody would have predicted when he was 17, 18 that he'd do that. And he's had to go the long road in his career, done a few, went on loan. I think he went on loan to like Ross County in Scotland when he was like 18, 19 and had a stinker. I think he got sent back after a month or two, definitely one goal on his day, I think. And like at that point, you're coming back to a football club where he would have come back to the 23s, and it's like everyone's questioning, can you handle men's football? And that's in like the Scottish Premier League, which, no disrespect to the Scottish Premier League, but it's not the
exactly.
Premier League,
Yeah.
is it? I was thinking, well, what's he sort of going to go on to? Um, then he did well for the 23. He's got a loan to Fleetwood under Joey Barton and absolutely flew there he ended up staying there 18 months, played week in, week out and did really well, which then come back to Stoke, kick on again, and then he's done really well for Stoke. I think him choosing, because he played for Scotland at like youth level, under 17s, 18s,
Yeah.
19s, I think. But I think making that switch to Australia created a little bit of hype around him and just got him headlines, which then people start sort of listening up and taking note of like, who
Mm.
is he? 6'6", because you walked onto a pitch and you notice him. You can't help but notice him. And then all of a sudden, like wins a few headers and that. It's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this six centre half can edit and he can bit. And then sort of went with the hype and did really well last season and kicked on. Obviously had a really good World Cup with Australia, which sort of probably sort of sealed the move to the Premier League. And I think he's done all right since he's been there. So, but just like top player now probably wasn't a start, but like as a person, like really
Mm.
nice guy. When I made my debut for Stoke last year, he played behind me. He was captain on the day, I think, and just like taught me through the game. Come up to me before the game, after the game, said well done. Like, was just everything that you'd probably sort of want from a leader. Put it like with me walking into a situation that is a bit sink or swim. Um, and he just like he helped me massively with that, and he'd always speak to you, which some first team players probably wouldn't as a young lad.
Mm.
Uh, but he'd been in that situation as well, so he knew what it was like, and yeah. just a nice guy, and I think he deserves everything that he's getting at the minute.
So you mentioned Souttar's time at Ross County. Are you as players sort of monitoring what your teammates are doing on loan, or are you keeping an eye on how they're doing out on loan?
Yeah, most of the time, like I said before, like they're your mates first, like first and foremost. You spend all your time with them, especially when you go full time. You spend
Mm,
more time with your actual family. So, like anybody that sort of goes out or even moves on to a different club, like on a permanent basis, you've got that relationship with them, and you want them to do well in the like. You want them to do well so bad that you do like. I've got the flash score app on my phone, and I've got favorited all the clubs that all my mates are at. And at every weekend, you're checking scores. Have they played? Have they come off?
mm.
If they've come off, I'm texting them. You're not injured, are you? And
Yeah,
it's just like you are constantly like you build up such a relationship with these lads
yeah.
that you sort of like checking to see how they're doing. And like even one of my mates, he's gone to Altrincham in the National League on a permanent, and he missed a penalty in the FA Trophy semi-final on Saturday. So then straight away left him a couple of days. Yesterday, text him, "How you getting on?" He's like, "I'm all right, but like I would have played at Wembley and da 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 da." But
Mm,
then you have to try and pick him up and say, "Well, look, you're 20 years old and you've played 46 games already this season. You've got 10
mm,
assists. Well," and it's just more about the emotions that are part of it. So you have to sort of keep in check with the boys to
mm,
keep sort of doing all right, because there's a lot of highs and lows, and it's nice to have somebody to
mm.
check.
Yeah, I guess as sort of outsiders looking in, you don't really ever see the impact that sort of penalty shootout losses or cup final losses
Yeah,
have on players. You don't really see that in terms of outsiders looking in.
yeah. No, like it's easy for, and I think like it's easy for fans to say sort of if a team's going through a really bad spell, like, oh, the players aren't trying and they don't care about the football club, and they probably are. Like it's just like the players probably got no confidence anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like as much as it hurts the fans from the football club, it hurts the player. And at the end of the day, the club can get rid of the player, and the player not have a career. So as a footballer, you're constantly playing for your next contract, and you're constantly playing for
Mm,
your career. So by missing penalties and shootouts, and by losing games, important games, it hurts even though it might not hurt in the same way as a fan in terms of like for like from a club point of view, even it hurts because the players put 10 months of graft in for that football club to get them into an important game shootout, and you've lost. But then as well, the players put in 15 years of graft to get himself to be a professional footballer, to then put himself in that situation,
mm,
and he's made a mistake and he's messed up, and it'll hurt his confidence, and I think like players care like they do, and I think it's just easy to sort of point fingers if they're out of form and stuff to say that like they don't care, but
mm.
I'd say 99% do.
I mean, most notably for me, I think it was the Italy shootout, like the Saka, the
Yeah,
Rashford. It's crazy that a country can just sort of come down on their players like that, man. It was
and
tough.
it's yeah, because it's so emotional in it. Like as
Mm,
fan, like all foot, like I was a massive Stoke fan, and I think everyone's guilty of like, oh, he's crap. Like, well, I could do what he does, and like, oh, you miss a pen. It's like all of a sudden, it's easy to point fingers, and like the abuse that them boys got after the Euros. I don't think there's any excuse like
yeah.
of in that line. Um, but yeah, it's just like fans are fickle, and fans will change opinions like so quickly because they care so much. Like I don't think it comes from a bad place, but I think if you get sort of too emotional, I don't think probably fans realise the effect that it can have on the team and the players that they're sort of aiming it at, because it hurts them just as much. You know what I mean? And then when you've got people reminding you that you've done it in front of 3 million
Yeah.
people, that doesn't help.
No, man. Okay, so moving slightly back to your time at Stoke, you
Yeah,
captained the under-18s, travelled with the first team towards the end of the 1920 season, named
yeah,
on the bench against Nottingham Forest, made your professional debut August 2021 against Fleetwood Town.
yeah.
Did moving on from Stoke, did that come as a shock, having spent 14 years at the club? Did that come as a bit of a surprise to the system?
Yeah. Um, I think after sort of making my debut and that there was talks of me signing another contract. That was it was going to be sort of moving from an academy contract to a first team contract, which is sort of a big deal.
Yeah,
Uh, then sort of tried to get out on loan at the start of the season and in January, both to League Two clubs. Had a deal to Leighton Orient. I was in my car, left. I had to wake up at like 6 o'clock, get to the training ground for 6:30 on transfer deadline day to get all my boots, said bye to all the staff because I was like, I'm going on loan to Leighton Orient for the season. Got in my car with my agent, got on the M6 to drive down to London, got a phone call, was signing somebody else. So I had loan moves like that I thought were happening that didn't happen. And then sort of got to like the February, March of last season, and it was like I haven't really got any senior games. And I got to the point where, yeah, I'd played for Stoke a couple of times in the cup and that, and I ended up going out on loan to Altrincham in the National League. Played 12 times, I think, in a couple of months there. And it was just like I don't think the manager at the time at Stoke thought that I was sort of ready to be a part of his like 18 that he was going to use week in week out. Um, and I think we all agreed that for the sake of sort of loans can be difficult to get, we'll let you go on a
mm,
free, go and find a home and go and play. Um, so then but it is a shock to the system. Like I'd been there so long that like I got to the point last season where I'd seen all of the staff that I was working with. I'd seen their first day.
yeah.
So you're almost part of the furniture, and you just get used to the habits of turning up, and you know where everything is, and it's nice and you're comfortable. And then it was sort of a shock to the system to go, well, I'm never going to come back here again, and I'm going to have to sort of get to grips with a whole new environment. But at the same time, I was quite excited because I'd never known anything different. I'd been coached by the same coaches and told the same messages for so long that I think it was probably the right thing to do, even though it was tough to sort of face. And then it was just a case of really trying to see what opportunities were ahead for this season, and see what clubs were interested and where I was going to sort of get the most opportunities.
Hmm. Do you find it sort of hard to adapt to the different environments when you're going out on loan and the different coaches and the different teams and the sets of players?
Yeah, I think that the hardest thing really is the players and the manager. I think like facilities and stuff you get used to, and it's different building, different kit, but it's all very much similar. But then it's just characters. It's not even necessarily that they're playing football. It's just the characters
Hmm.
and finding where you fit and who are you gonna sort of be mates with. There's always lads in a change room who you going, he's not that professional. Do you stick with him because
Hmm.
everybody he's a bit of he's banter, or do you stick with probably the quieter ones who maybe don't sort of run the dressing room, but you know that he's going to probably be the first one in. He's going to do extra gym. He's going to do this and that, and then it's sort of trying to find where you fit in each dressing room, which takes a little bit of time. So especially when you're on loan, it's difficult to because you've got to do it quicker, and you've got to find your feet quicker, and ultimately you've got to do what the manager's brought you in to do. So you've got to find that out first, because every manager likes different things and
Hmm.
wants different things from you on the pitch and off the pitch. So it's sort of finding it helps if you know walking in, but sometimes it's just a case of
Hmm.
you sign a contract, you're in on loan for a month, right? And what's he want from you on Saturday? And then you've got to try and sort of just do your job and get through and adapt that way.
Is there any sort of those leaders that you mentioned at Salford, or those sort of notable figures in the dressing room at Salford that you sort of feel drawn to, or Feel like you
Yeah,
sort of want to impress as a player.
yeah. I think you sort of know walking. You can tell by the changing room before you even go out to train who are the ones that you're thinking like, yeah. Just by the way, I think that people sort of carry themselves, how they speak to the other lads, and you can tell when lads respect a player. So at Salford, like you've got Jason Lowe. He's like 35, I think.
Yeah,
Played in the Premier League for Blackburn. Played for Bolton at like Championship League One level. Had a really good career. Got a good career outside of football as well with like business and properties and stuff. Um, so then straight away you sort of looking at he's fit and he's 35, he's still playing at a good level of football and he's got all this going on outside of football. What sort of can I take from him to obviously sort of not replicate what he's done, but he's obviously done something right
mm,
to be in that he's in. So straight away you sort of try and get on the right side of them sorts of people because he's got a bit of pull in the dressing room, and then also get as close as you can to the ones that you want to take stuff off because it's if you don't, then it's sort of a wasted opportunity, I suppose,
mm,
sharing a dressing
yeah, that's right. So you signed for Salford back in October 2022.
room. Yeah,
Did you sort of go into Salford with the impression that drop down a couple of leagues, get some game time, be sort of a member of the starting 11? Were you surprised that that maybe didn't work out in that way?
yeah. Like I always knew because of my age and my lack of experience that there was probably I'd have to go and improve myself. I was under no illusions that I was never going to go in as like a star player. Um, but when I sort of signed and I sat down with everyone, it was sort of like, yeah, you're going to come in. This is where we see you playing in our starting 11. Um, I had like you get a whole PowerPoint. Like, this is where we see you playing. This is the role. These are the attributes that you've got that we like. Um, these are places to live in Manchester,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So it was sort of sold to me as like, yeah, you're going to come in and we really like you. We've been watching you for a little while. So I was like, great. Like I had options to go to other clubs, but it was probably, I felt at the time I'd go in sort of lower down the pecking order and but I would have been in high leagues. I could have gone to the Championship of League One again, but I chose to sort of make the jump. It was a bit of a risk, really, to go down to League Two to play and prove myself because I knew I could play at that level. I'd played in the National League last year anyway, so I was like, I'll just go in and play. And then sort of turned up, and it wasn't really how it was sold to me. There's like 5 or 6 in a group sort of under the first team that I got sort of put into, and then it was like a bit of a blow because you don't know how soon then the opportunities are going to come for you.
yeah,
Um, didn't help. I tore my quad on the second day of pre-season, so I missed all the pre-season, sort of the first 2 or 3 games of the actual season. So I'd got to that point of I'd been in the football club 2 months and I'd never trained in front of the
yeah,
manager. I'd never trained in front of the manager like them senior lads that talk about like trying to impress and trying to take stuff off. I did all my injury rehab at a different venue because of how Salford works. So I got into 2 months, and the lads who I wanted to sort of gain respect off, I hadn't even spoke to. And then you sort of coming in, trying to do what you have to do when you go into a new club, but 2 months down the line when everything's settled and everything was sort of running smoothly, they'd started the season really well, and it was almost like what impressions and what sort of inroads I could have probably made in pre-season to force myself in had already been shut off because the opportunities to mix up the orders had gone. And then it was just sort of accepting it because it hurts your ego massively. Like going from like 3 months ago, I was training with a championship first team
mm,
in traveling to Birmingham away, Fulham away, on like like on massive buses first class trains, like you're talking like, and then I'm sat at home on a Saturday, not in the squad in a League Two team, not doing anything, without anybody really saying this is the reason why. Nothing that's really been in my control, and going, well, in the space of like 3-4 months, my career's taken a massive downfall because of what? Like, I haven't done anything wrong. I've spent the last 15 years trying to be the best footballer I can be, and I've got to a level where I can play in the championship here. I train with the Stoke lads day in, day out, and I'm fine. And now I'm in this situation. So I was like mentally really struggled for 2-3 months, like just not wanting to go in, not wanting to play football. I didn't want to watch football. I didn't want to know the Salford score. Like, I hated it because I just couldn't accept the position that I was in.
Mm.
Um, and then I, I just, I don't know, just got come out of the other side, I suppose, and said, right, I want to go on loan. I want to go, and I don't want to waste a year doing nothing. So I ended up going on loan down south to Truro,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
never at a level of football that I thought I'd have to play at, with all respect to them. But it was the only way that I was going to get games of football and keep myself busy on a Saturday without sitting at home thinking
Mm.
what could. So did that for a few months, kept me busy, but it's a lot. It took me 4 hours to get to home games.
Mm.
Uh, so it was a lot of travel and that. So came back to Salford. Salford said, look, we've got some clubs in the National League that will take you on loan. So I was like, brilliant. I come back, and then like I'll be back out within a week. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks come, and all the clubs that they said were ready to take me had just gone quiet. So then I was back in the same situation of sat at home on a Saturday again, and it was like got into probably a similar mental headspace of like do I even want to play football come the end of the season? Like I signed up to, like, I'd done all my UCAS stuff to go to uni next year. Um, like I was fully looking into going in just full time uni, and just like I wouldn't even play part time football because I
Mm.
was just so done with it. And I just, again, like I just couldn't accept why I'd fallen down so much in my career without nobody had, like, I'd not done anything.
Mm.
But then again, Ashton, where I am now, manager rang me and said, "Look, just come and play for the last couple of months of the season." And it's sort of every time I've gone back out on loan after not playing for a little bit, it does sort of spark that love up for it again. And like where I am now, I've only played 3 games, but we've won 3 games, and I've played